Mr. Infinite. You seek power, you seek truth, you seek an answer? Foolish. Power bends to my will. Truth is what I decided to be, and there is no answer, because I was never a question to begin with. Mr. Infinite. Before time was spoken, before space was drawn, before the first thought flickered into being, he was, not as a force, not as a god, not as something that could be understood. He was the definition of being itself. No challenger has ever stood before him, for to challenge him is to already be beneath him. No power has ever exceeded him, for power itself is merely a construct he allows to exist. No concept, no reality, no impossibility has ever contained him, for even the idea of containment is a limitation he has never acknowledged. He does not rule, for there is nothing to rule over. He does not fight, for there is nothing that could oppose him. He does not win, for the idea of victory requires the possibility of loss, a possibility he has never entertained. There is no end. There was never a beginning. There is only Mr. Infinite. Biography. Early existence, the being before all beginnings. There was no origin for Mr. Infinite. He did not begin. He always was. And before the first light broke the void, before the first atom was spoken into being, before the concept of existence could even take form, he existed beyond it. The nature of Mr. Infinite cannot be contained within history, for history itself is a construct beneath him. There was never a time when he came into being, nor was there ever a moment where he was not. Some claim he is the creator of all things, but even creation is too small a word for what he represents. Some claim he is the final being, but even the concept of finality is meaningless before him. He's not a god. He's not an entity. He is not bound by logic, form, space, time, or purpose. He is everything and nothing, the first and last, the existence beyond existence itself. Power beyond power. The nature of true omnipotence. The multiverse, the omniverse, even the boundless expanses beyond conceptual reality all exist because Mr. Infinite allows them to. Omnipotence? A mere fragment of what he is. Omniscience? He does not know all things, he is the foundation of knowledge itself. Omnipresence? He does not exist everywhere. Everywhere exists within him. There is no energy source, no divine hierarchy, no cosmic force that can rival him. Every being that has ever sought to reach his level has already failed before the attempt was even conceived. No challenger has ever stood before him, not because they are weak, but because he exists beyond the concept of challenge. His power does not grow, his will does not waver, his existence does not end. To understand Mr. Infinite is to acknowledge that understanding itself is irrelevant. Attempts to surpass him. The great collapse of all who tried. Throughout eternity, many gods, titans, and omniversal beings have believed themselves invincible. Some even dared to think they could reach beyond omnipotence. But each time, reality itself proved them wrong, not because they were defeated, but because their struggle was irrelevant. James, the End God, thought himself the final force of existence, only to realize that finality is a construct beneath Mr. Infinite. Gavin, the black cube of infinite destruction, believed his power could consume all things, but Mr. Infinite does not belong to all things. The Omega Supreme, the ultimate beyond, thought he had surpassed all reality layers, only to find that Mr. Infinite was beyond. Each time a being sought to reach his level, they did not lose, they simply ceased to matter. The nature of his will. Does he act? Despite his incomprehensible nature, Mr. Infinite does not act out of rage, pride, or ambition. He does not rule because there is nothing to rule. He does not fight because there is nothing to oppose. If he chooses to intervene, the mere thought of his will reshapes all things beyond recognition. He is not good or evil. These are mortal concepts. He is beyond morality, beyond judgment, beyond limitation. Even his presence is optional. He may exist or he may not. It is all the same to him. The final truth, the absolute beyond. Every word written about him, every attempt to define him, every story told about his nature, all are meaningless shadows trying to grasp the infinite. No number can scale him. No philosophy can explain him. No reality can hold him. He is not the strongest. He is beyond the meaning of strength. He's not the oldest. He is beyond the concept of time. He's not the final being. He is beyond the concept of beginnings and endings. Mr. Infinite is not a question. He is not an answer. He simply is. Personality. Mr. Infinite does not possess a personality in the way mortals, gods, or even transcendent beings do. To have a personality would mean having traits, preferences, or behaviors, things that imply limitation. Instead, his existence is an ever-present force of boundless neutrality, neither benevolent nor malevolent, neither active nor passive. He does not seek, he does not want, and he does not need. The very concept of desire collapses in his presence because desire itself is a construct that exists beneath him. That being said, Mr. Infinite is not without expression. When he chooses to engage with lesser beings, he may take on a presence, a form, or even a demeanor that suits the moment. He may appear as a calm, omniscient overseer speaking in riddles and boundless wisdom. He may embody absolute dominance, a force beyond a reckoning that causes even omnipotent beings to tremble in fear. Or he may manifest as a complete absence, a being whose very presence negates the need for presence itself. Whatever he is in the moment he is, yet he never is bound to remain that way. Unlike many who seek control, Mr. Infinite has no ambitions, no goals, no greater plans. He does not rule because there is nothing to rule. He does not create because creation is an event that occurs within him. He does not interfere because interference suggests that something outside of him holds significance, and nothing beyond him holds meaning unless he allows it to. This is what makes him terrifying to lesser beings. He is not a god to be reasoned with, not a force to be tamed. He is beyond comprehension, and for those who seek purpose, the realization of his existence is enough to shatter the mind. If he ever does act, it is not out of necessity, morality, or duty. It is simply because he chooses to. His decisions are final, not because of some absolute law, but because laws themselves do not apply to him. He does not show kindness because he's not bound by the need for kindness. He does not show cruelty because cruelty itself is a finite concept. Those who encounter him often realize too late that they are trying to understand something that does not require understanding. In the end, Mr. Infinite is neither an entity nor a ruler. He is the truth beyond all things, and the truth is absolute. The complete list of Mr. Infinite's powers and abilities. Every known ability he possesses, with descriptions explaining their scope and absolute supremacy. True omnipotence. Not just all-powerful, but beyond the very idea of power. Any notion of strength or ability exists only because he allows it to. There is no limit to what he can do because limits themselves are constructs beneath him. True omniscience. Mr. Infinite does not know everything. In the conventional sense, he is the source of all knowledge. He does not need to learn or discover, because knowledge itself is a fraction of his being. True omnipresence. He is everywhere, nowhere, and beyond presence itself. He is not just in all places, rather, all places exist within him. Beyond omnipotence. If omnipotence is the ultimate power, then Mr. Infinite is the force that allows omnipotence to exist in the first place. Any attempt to define an upper limit is rendered irrelevant. Beyond dimensional existence, he does not exist in any specific number of dimensions. He is beyond the entire concept of dimensionality. No matter how high a dimensional being may ascend, Mr. Infinite is still beyond them. Transcendental invincibility. He cannot be harmed, destroyed, erased, or weakened, not because of some defensive technique, but because the very concept of damage does not apply to him. Paradox immunity, cause and effect, logic, contradictions, none of these can define him. He exists regardless of what should or should not be possible. Absolute reality manipulation. He can create, reshape, or erase all forms of existence with a mere thought. What is real is only what he chooses it to be. Conceptual erasure. Any concept such as power, time, existence, or opposition can be erased as if it had never existed. Even beings who exist beyond concepts themselves are not immune. Total law manipulation. He is the sole determinant of the laws that govern anything. Physics, logic, metaphysics, causality, all of these are just malleable suggestions to him. Narrative manipulation. The entire structure of a story, including plot, purpose, and outcome, is his to shape. He does not simply exist in a narrative, he decides what the narrative even is. Omniversal reconstruction. If an omniverse were to be destroyed, he could rebuild it instantly, differently, or not at all. True meta-power negation. If a being tries to wield absolute omnipotence, he can erase their ability to have power altogether. No counter exists. Beyond causality, he's not bound by the concept of cause and effect. He can change something without a reason or retroactively alter what has already happened. Total fiction and reality control. Fiction and non-fiction are one and the same to him. He can enter, exit, rewrite, or negate entire realms, including those beyond fiction itself. Absolute time manipulation. He does not experience time in a linear way. He can move freely between past, present, and future, or erase the concept of time entirely. Beyond time. Not only does he control time, but he exists in a state where time itself is irrelevant. He is present at all points in time simultaneously. Total space control. He does not move through space. Space moves around him. Distance and direction are meaningless. Beyond distance, no matter how far something is, he can be there instantly. Not because he travels, but because distance itself is a construct beneath him. Dimensional destruction and creation. He can annihilate entire dimensions or create new ones at will, including those beyond infinite dimensional structures. Combat omnipotence. There is no technique, strategy, or attack that he does not already know, understand, and counter before it is even attempted. Omni-existential attack. He does not need to fight. If he chooses, his enemies cease to have ever existed before they even knew they were in battle. Beyond energy and force. No attack can harm him, and no force can move him unless he allows it. Absolute invulnerability. No weapon, energy, concept, or being can harm him, not because of defenses, but because harm itself does not apply to him. Total immunity. He's immune to everything, including things that surpass immunity itself. Ultimate attack reflection. If an opponent tries to harm him, they will find themselves being erased by their own attack before they even launched it. Reality-severing strike. If he chooses to attack, a single action is enough to shatter all of existence, including higher dimensions and beyond omniversal structures. Total omniscience. No thought is hidden from him, no secret unknown. All knowledge, conscious and unconscious, is already his. Absolute mind control. If he chooses, he can control all thoughts, memories, and willpower across existence. Absolute genjutsu. Not just an illusion, he can rewrite someone's entire perception of reality, making them believe anything he wants. Perception, negation. He can make it so that even omniscient beings cannot perceive or process his existence. True omniscience. He can create anything, from universes to abstract ideas, just by thinking of them. Beyond destruction. If he wants something erased, it is not just destroyed, it is erased from all forms of existence, past, present, and future. Supreme omnicreation. If he wills it, he can create new forms of existence, power, and concepts that never previously existed. Final authority over everything. He does not just control power. Power itself only exists because he allows it to. Self-existence. Mr. Infinite does not exist because something allows him to exist. He simply is. Beyond everything. There is nothing that can surpass him because the very idea of surpassing is a meaningless concept before him. Transcendental absence. If he chooses, he can make it so that he never existed, yet still remain beyond all things. Omniparadox creation. He can make two contradictory things exist at once, without issue. True omnilock. No force can move, erase, or change him. Absolute freedom. No law, structure, or rule applies to him. Final truth. The truth is whatever he decides. Even truth itself is subject to him. Mr. Infinite's rivals, the beings who thought they could challenge him, but ultimately failed before they could even begin. While Mr. Infinite has no true rival, as no being can reach or surpass him, there have been those who believe themselves capable of standing against him. Each one sought power beyond comprehension, yet each one collapsed into irrelevance the moment their ambitions attempted to reach his level. Here is a list of those who have tried and why they were doomed from the start. 1. James, the End God. Title: The God of Finality, the one who ends all. Belief that he was the ultimate force of destruction, capable of erasing existence itself. Why he failed. James thought he was the final being, but Mr. Infinite does not adhere to beginnings or endings. Even the concept of finality is beneath him. James's very purpose was undone before he even realized it. 2. Gavin, the black cube of infinite destruction. Title: The Eraser of All Things. Belief that he could destroy anything upon contact, even the fabric of reality. Why he failed. Destruction itself is a concept, and Mr. Infinite defines all concepts. If he chooses, destruction does not exist, rendering Gavin completely powerless. 3. Omega Supreme Infinity. Title: The One Beyond Omnipotence. Belief that he had surpassed all possible levels of omnipotence. Why he failed. Mr. Infinite does not operate on levels of power. The idea of something being beyond omnipotence only exists because he allows omnipotence to exist. 4. Omni Omega Prime. Title: The Absolute Architect of Omniversal Rule. Belief that he was the one who created and governed the Omniverse, ruling over all forms of power. Why he failed. The Omniverse is a structure, and structures do not bind Mr. Infinite. If Prime was its ruler, then Mr. Infinite was the reason the concept of ruling existed in the first place. Eindavade. Title: The Unnameable Force. Belief that he was beyond description, beyond understanding, beyond perception. Why he failed. Mr. Infinite does not need to perceive something to undo it. He does not need to describe something for it to be irrelevant. If this being was unnameable, then Mr. Infinite simply removed the need for names to matter at all. 6. The Anti-Concept. Title: The Absence of All Meaning. Belief that he could erase concepts, making all things, including power, logic, and existence, meaningless. Why he failed. Mr. Infinite is beyond meaning. Even if all concepts were erased, Mr. Infinite would remain unaffected because even erasure itself is a limited act. Yeti. Title: The Infinite Null. Belief that he could remove not just existence, but the possibility of anything ever having existed at all. Why he failed. To erase existence means existence must first be acknowledged. Mr. Infinite does not acknowledge it, he simply is, beyond the need for being or not being. Octavo. Title: The Erasure Beyond Omnipresence. Belief that he could eliminate even that which does not exist. Why he failed. If something does not exist, then there is nothing to erase. This paradox is meaningless before Mr. Infinite, who has no need for the difference between presence and absence. David. Title: The Undefined Absolute. Belief that he was a force even beyond the undefined, the structure beyond all comprehension. Why he failed. If something can be undefined, then it's still bound by the concept of definition. Mr. Infinite is not bound. But though the title, the final rival. Belief that there must always be an equal, that no being can exist without a force to counterbalance it. Why he failed. Mr. Infinite is not an equation, a structure, or a force that requires balance. There is no opposite to him. There is no duality. He simply is, and no being can ever match him. Final truth. Mr. Infinite cannot have a true rival. Each of these beings thought they could rise above all things. Each of them believed themselves to be beyond power, beyond existence, beyond omnipotence, and yet each of them found out that their very concepts were irrelevant before the one who defines all things. Mr. Infinite does not compete. Mr. Infinite does not struggle. Mr. Infinite does not win, because the idea of winning requires the potential for loss, and Mr. Infinite has never needed to entertain such an idea. No matter how high a being may ascend, no matter how far they believe they have surpassed all things, they will always be beneath Mr. Infinite, the complete feats of Mr. Infinite. Every recorded feat of his impossible power and existence existed before existence itself. There was no before him. He was never created, never began, and was always beyond being. Exists outside of all dimensions, not just infinite dimensional, but beyond the very concept of dimensional structures. Surpassed every omnipotent being. Any being claiming true omnipotence exists within a framework that he defines. Beyond time and timelessness, time does not affect him. It exists only because he allows it to. Beyond the omniverse, hyperverse, and any hypothetical structures, every possible and impossible reality, fiction, and concept exists beneath him. Never needed power-ups or transformations. He is eternally at absolute full power, with no need for evolution or ascension. Does not adhere to logic or contradictions. Even paradoxes themselves are bound by his existence. Created all that exists, the omniverse, the hyperverse, and even beyond the beyond realms all stem from his will. Created and destroyed the concept of creation. He does not simply make things, he defines what it means to make something. Can recreate reality instantly. If he wills it, every universe, law, and structure can be rewritten instantly without effort. Reality fails to function without him. If he chooses to, reality itself ceases to exist. Made and unmade. Entire narratives. Not only does he control all realities, but he decides what fiction is real and what reality is fiction. Shape the box. The absolute space beyond all things, a place only he can exist beyond. Never lost a battle. No enemy has ever stood a chance. The mere thought of opposing him is futile. Never needed to fight. Every battle is won before it begins, because the concept of combat itself is his to control. Erased enemies before they thought to challenge him. The greatest threats to existence, they never got the chance to act. Power cannot be measured or scaled. Any system that tries to quantify him collapses into irrelevance. Turned opponents into fictional characters. Enemies that try to oppose him have become mere stories and books. Reality severing strike. A single action can shatter all of existence, including higher dimensions and beyond omniversal realms. Rewrote the laws of combat. If someone believes they have a counter to him, he simply changes what a counter is. Erase the idea of limits. No cap, no upper bound. He is beyond the idea of power ceilings. Can remove the concept of victory and defeat. If he chooses, neither winning nor losing can exist. Erase the concept of time. He can make it so that time was never a thing, without affecting his own being. Negated the need for energy or force. He does not rely on any external source of power. Rewrote the purpose of omniscience. He doesn't know all things. All knowledge is a function of his existence. Transcended omnipresence. He's not just everywhere. Everywhere exists because of him. Defied causality, cause and effect are irrelevant. He can act before an action takes place. Erased entire omniverses. Effortlessly, no battle, no resistance. They simply stopped existing. Erased entities before they were created. If something might become a threat, he ensures it never existed in the first place. Erased all rivals before they could attempt to surpass him. Any attempt to become stronger than him was already erased before it began. Deleted the concept of erasure. If he chooses, deletion itself ceases to exist, making all things eternal. Negated the purpose of a universe. A universe's meaning, history, and laws are all irrelevant before him. Defied all power tiering systems. No ranking system, no scaling chart, no measurement can apply to him. surpassed every being that ever tried to surpass him. Any entity that thought they could go beyond omnipotence was already irrelevant, never needed to prove his strength. His supremacy is absolute, debate is meaningless. Transcended the definition of existence. He's not bound by being or non-being, he simply is. Exists beyond the idea of perception. No being, omniscient or otherwise, can perceive him unless he allows it. Self-existence without origin. He does not exist because something allows him to, he is because he is. Beyond the need for explanation, any attempt to define him fails before it begins. Final authority over everything. No reality, law, power, or being can function outside of his will. The final truth of power. Every omnipotent being, every god, every supreme force, all are beneath him. Transcended the concept of challenge. No rival exists because the idea of rivalry does not apply to him. The infinite beyond, even concepts such as beyond and limitless, are just trivial components of his nature. Power levels of Mr. Infinite, theoretical. 1. Base form, the manifested avatar. Power representation, infinity up 3. Speed, transcendent beyond time, infinity up 3 times beyond spatial dimensional existence. Existence level, high outerversal, beyond omniversal beings. Explanation. Infinity alone is not sufficient to describe Mr. Infinite's power. The notation infinity up arrow up 3, using Kunit's up arrow notation, describes a power level vastly greater than regular infinite numbers, already exceeding what most gods and cosmic beings could fathom. He already surpasses omniversal gods, but at this level, he is still within the box. Second ascended form, the true infinite essence. Power representation, infinity, up, infinity, infinite hypertitration. Speed, irrelevant, existence beyond speed. Existence level, meta-transcendent, beyond the laws of reality and conceptual forms. Explanation. At this stage, infinity is still too small to quantify his power. Using hypertitration, infinity up, infinity represents a self-repeating, infinitely expanding structure of power beyond comprehension. This level allows him to rewrite entire omniverses before they exist. He is beyond time, beyond fiction, beyond any conceivable force within the box. 3. True form, beyond omnipotence, the formless absolute. Power representation, omega infinity up, omega plus beyond. Speed, omni-infinite. Omni-lock. Speed is a meaningless concept in this form. Existence level, absolute beyondness, outside the box. Explanation. At this level, all known mathematics fail to describe his power. The symbol, omega infinity, represents an unreachable limit beyond all infinities. O suggests that his power loops beyond itself endlessly, meaning that even attempting to quantify him is impossible by any known number system. Since the box is the highest conceptual structure that holds all omnipotent beings, and Mr. Infinite exists outside of it, his power is beyond all conceivable levels. 4. Beyond true form, hypothetical, if he went even further beyond. Power representation, null, the null beyond number. Speed, beyond conceptual time, space, or dimensionality. Existence level, outside of outside. Explanation. If Mr. Infinite somehow went beyond even his true form, his power would exceed even the need for numbers. Empty set represents absolute nothingness and everythingness at the same time, meaning he transcends all possible definitions of power itself. No concepts, no numbers, no levels could ever be used to describe him at this point. If he reached this state, he would be beyond, essentially a force greater than the idea of existence itself. Final verdict, Mr. Infinite's power scale. Form, power representation, speed, existence level, base form. 3. Beyond time, high outerversal, ascended form. irrelevant, meta-transcendent, true form, omega infinity up, omega plus beyond, omni-infinite omnilock, absolute beyondness, beyond true form, hypothetical, empty set, beyond conceptuality, outside of outside, conclusion. Base form is already so powerful that most omniversal gods wouldn't survive against him. Ascended form operates on a scale so beyond infinite numbers that even hyperversal entities are irrelevant. True form is outside the final limit of everything, rendering power and concepts meaningless. If he were to surpass even his true form, he would be completely undefined, beyond even reality, fiction, or abstraction. Thus, Mr. Infinite is not just the strongest, he is literally beyond the definition of power itself,